Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal. Earlier today we were waiting for the new beta build, which came out a little bit later than usual. The patience is being rewarded as we see even more class adjustments and changes. Majority of these are going to be continued fixes and small improvements, with a big focus on hero specs and tuning them specifically. And we'll probably see even more specified tuning over the next few weeks, because apparently the pre-patch for War Within may be arriving much sooner than expected. Besides all these class changes, we also saw a bunch of new animation changes, like when you load into your warband, you now get to observe all of your characters assuming different animations depending on their class and spec, which is awesome to see. But out of all the changes today, I really wanted to focus in on some of the major class adjustments, with one of the most exciting classes, the Warlock, getting even more updates, with them trying to improve demonology with a better doom-focused gameplay, but also some major talent adjustments for destruction and updates to hero specs. As always, if you guys enjoyed regular class updates like these over on the channel for the War Within beta, be sure to follow, but otherwise, let's jump right in. So taking a look at Warlocks specifically, I first want to start off with the hero talents, just because we can get through them very quickly, as Diabolist, Hellcaller, as well as Soul Harvester have all saw some smaller and major adjustments. Starting off with the Diabolist, which I feel like it's still gotta be one of my favorite hero specs from any class in the game. It's just so flavorful. There's a lot of cool demons that you get to summon. So each and every one of the major demons that you summon, from your Overfiend, or Overlord rather, to the Chaos Mother, as well as your Pit Lord, as well as the abilities that they grant you, all of them have been adjusted in this build. To start things off, I mean, the Overlord himself is a little bit different in terms of functionality, and it is a better functionality. So now when you're poised to summon the Overlord instead charges directly at the enemy. He spawns in, quickly charges right to the location, then does the attack. This in turn, the charge allows them to kind of track the enemy and follow them directly. And this is comparing the Overlord to the initial leap ability, which would leap to the target's location, but mid-leap, if the target were to move away from where the Overlord is leaping, that would cause the Overlord to miss the enemy entirely. I do think that the charge is maybe a little bit slower, as if you put stuff in front of him, he does get caught on things a little, so there might be a bit of a delay before he really does reach the target and does his damage component and debuffs them. But at least this is a more consistent version of Overlord this time around. The other one that also got adjusted is the Chaos Mother. Primarily when you summon the Chaos Mother, she adjusts the way that your next Incinerate ability functions. They actually changed its cast from a second cast to a 2-second cast, which is technically a nerf. It also got a slightly different visual, just a quick bolt and you're done. It still hits like a truck and does really good, especially as, well, I guess for both Destro and Demo, since Demonology got a Shadow Bolt focused tier set out of nowhere. But they did increase the casting of this ability, which I guess, yeah, it's technically is a nerf, but it, like in play, it feels better. Normally Infernal Bolt happens so quick, I'm already accidentally queuing up another Incinerate instead of trying to go Infernal Bolt into a Chaos Bolt, and it's like the timing feels a lot more smoother with this adjustment. Also, all of the demons can now be seen and observed by other players, though they'll see a much smaller version of these demons. But for example, when the tank sees a Pit Lord, your tank should know that the Warlock is about to set up a massive AoE damage, and they're seeing them use their abilities. You may want to keep the enemies near those demons in order to give them the full time to be able to do full damage, because these demons do actually have damage of their own that they will do, and if the enemy gets too far away, they just stop. So that is going to be a little bit better when it comes to that overall group interaction. Next we got the Hellcaller, which is a little bit more interesting for, and I guess it already was pretty interesting before this, but they're trying to make it a little bit better for destruction. Specifically with the talent here with Seeds of Their Demise, where the hero spec for the most part didn't really have you interact and invest into very specific talents so heavily. But they've recently adjusted where the Seeds of the Demise now reads Blackened Soul, which is like part of an effect of the actual Wither ability. Basically the dot can sometimes gain stacks, and which increases damage, but it can start eating those stacks to do additional damage. Anyway, whenever you dot a Wither gains a Blackened Soul, that damage is increased. When Blackened Soul deals damage directly, you have a chance to gain 2 stacks of Flashpoint. Flashpoint is a talent over here on the right hand side of the talent tree. When Nimble deals periodic damage to a target that is above 80% health, you gain 2% haste for 10 seconds, and this effect can stack up to 3 times. So now if you're playing a Hellcaller version of Warlock and you get random procs of Blackened Soul, which happens pretty regularly when you press the main Malevolence ability, you have a chance against enemies that are not max health to gain additional haste with Flashpoint, which I think is kind of cool. Gives the ability of a little bit more interaction gives you even more reason to talent into Flashpoint, specifically when it comes to playing Hellcaller. And it even gives you a little bit more of that immolation interaction, since Wither transforms your main immolation into a Wither. So overall, I like this little change. And lastly, we have the Soul Harvester, which not only saw a new icon, and right now we're just missing Hellcaller for Warlock, but I really like Soul Harvester and the demon that you get to summon and how it's visible in the icon itself. But there's just a slight little adjustment here in the utility realm. So now you can choose between Eternal Servitude, where Fell Domination cooldown is reduced by 90 seconds, or you can play into Gorefiend's Resolve, where targets resurrected by Soulstone resurrect with 40% additional health and 80% additional mana, which can be good in like raid and dungeon situations potentially. Though from here on, we can actually move on into the Warlock talent changes and adjustments, starting off with a spec of Affliction. For Affliction Warlocks, they're seeing only a handful of adjustments, such as a redesign to the Death's Embrace ability. Death's Embrace now reads, increase the drain life healing by 30%, while your health is at or below 35% health. But also damage done by your Agony, Corruption, Unstable, Affliction, and Malefic Rapture is increased by 10% when the target is at or below 35% health, which overall gives you a nice execute based talent that also plays into your own anti-execute mechanic, which I really like to see. And overall, it offers you a mix of dot damage, but also that Malefic Rapture damage, whether you're playing the dot focused Hellcaller or the Soul Harvester, with Affliction now gaining a better profile when it comes to their overall execute damage, which they naturally have with spells such as Drain Soul. Malediction is another talent that has also been redesigned. But the talent now reads, Malediction increases the critical strike chance of Agony, Corruption, and Unstable Affliction by 10%. And it's usually a good idea to pair Malediction with things such as Contagion, which increases the critical strike damage of Agony, Corruption, and Unstable Affliction by up to 30%. Also, if you're speccing into Soul Rot and you want to adjust and change the way Soul Rot plays, they actually adjusted the two upgrade talents for Soul Rot. With Malign Omen, the talent that allows you Malefic Rapture to deal additional damage after Soul Rot and extend the duration of your dots, as well as Haunt by 2 seconds, this talent is going to be available first when picking up your Soul Rot. Though if you really want to invest heavily into Soul Rot, then you'll want to also pick up Dark Harvester, if you're looking for additional burst damage from the haste and the crit amplification. This allows Soul Rot to have a little bit more of a meaningful way to be able to adjust and alter your rotation as Affliction Warlock, while also having a much deeper impact on how you play around with your main mechanic of dotting and maintaining all of your damage over time abilities. And with that, we can now move on to Demonology, which has also gotten a few adjustments, one of them being particularly interesting since it basically tries not to clutter your overall DPS rotation. We even got a special blue post that reads, we redesigned Doom, the ability that recently became a button down here. They redesigned it to be more similar to the tier set from Season 3 and Season 4 in Dragonflight. So Doom now reads, when Demonbolt consumes a demonic core, it inflicts impending doom upon the target, dealing 200,000 shadow damage to enemies within 10 yards of its target after 20 seconds, or when removed. And consuming demonic cores helps reduce the duration of Doom by 2 seconds. So functionally, Doom basically goes back to the way that it used to function over on Alive Realms, where now it's a little bit more passive. And if, let's say, you have multiple procs of Demonic Core, you can now spread this Doom to multiple targets automatically, which makes it a little bit of an easier of an ability to weave as part of your rotation. Though the Doom feeds that you summon are a little bit more single target heavy. As you can see, they're just focusing a single target instead of hitting multiple foes at a time. I am going to miss that, but this is going to make the entire Doom Fiend playstyle a little bit more raid focused rather than dungeon focused, though the actual use of Doom I think will still be pretty decent. Overall, this reduces a little bit more of that rotational complexity for Demonology Warlocks. But they've also adjusted a couple of other things as well in order to help their abilities sync a little bit better, since now there's going to be a little bit more connection within Doom, as well as their core procs, which are going to be very necessary if you're playing around the Power Siphon ability. To keep Power Siphon at a 30-second cooldown, I've adjusted a couple of talents, one of them being Blood Invocation, where Power Siphon increases the damage of your Doom by additional 25%, giving you a little bit of burst, but there's no longer any kind of cooldown reduction mechanics for the ability of Power Siphon. Further down below Doom, we also have talents such as Impending Doom, which increases the damage of Doom by 30%, and Doom now guarantees summons one wild imp when it expires, which plays better into the whole Demonology playstyle. On the flip side, we still have talents such as Doom Eternal, where demonic cores help reduce the duration of Doom by an additional 2 seconds, though the reduction elements of Doom are already baked into the ability. But if you wanted to go off more regularly, like in pure single target situations, where you're looking to fish for more procs of Pact of Eredruin, you are more than welcome to do so with this kind of combo. Lastly, they keep nerfing our favorite summon Charhound ability, and I love the way that these hounds look, but his main ability of Infernal Presence has gotten yet another 50% nerf. And this is a very effective demon that can do quite a bit of AoE damage whenever he is around. And I'm pretty sure his damage is absolutely uncapped, so the more enemies are nearby, the more value that he gains. That being said, this does make Demonology profile very heavy towards AoE, and I guess they thought that maybe that's a bit much, so the Infernal Presence ability has been cut by 50% yet again. And lastly, I want to bring it back to where it all began, by going over the spec of Destruction, which has gotten a bit of a talent adjustments if you were carefully watching earlier, as we were talking about Diabolus as well as Hellcaller. So, the main important thing to note about Destruction is a new positional for the talent of Summon Infernal. Originally, the Infernal was rotated further down towards the bottom right, with other talents that empowered the Infernal in a variety of different ways in order to make it a capstone choice. But at the time, they brought Dimensional Rift up a little bit in order to make the talent a little bit easier for most players to pick up. That being said, not as many players were picking up Dimensional Rift or really found it nearly as compelling. And a lot of the players found that Summon Infernal is just core to the Destruction experience, so most builds, single target, AoE, anything you do, are going to benefit heavily from Summon Infernal. So based on the blue post they wrote, they actually adjusted Summon Infernal up a little bit to serve as a powerful cooldown for players to look forward to while leveling their Warlock. But I can also argue that Summon Infernal was going to be core to just about every single build anyway, so moving them further down the middle just to give that ease of access of Infernal, whether you choose to upgrade him or not, this Infernal is going to be core to every single Warlock spec. There's no Warlock that isn't going to summon the Infernal regularly. What this also does is it gives Destruction a little bit more flexibility of how you talent out your talent tree. And that flexibility can be observed from the beginning if you try to make a build, let's say for raiding or dungeons, or maybe more of a generic build. You almost like start with Conflagrate, pick up Rain of Souls, Backdraft, Havoc, because I feel like just about every single Warlock build should include a Havoc, Cataclysm, Scalding Flames. Now you got someone to work with. Then you have a couple of talents that you can pick up in order to help fill out your build. Further down, as you're trying to pick up capstones, you can easily pick up Summoner's Embrace with the Infernal. On the left hand side, picking up Ember Storm and Eradication locks in that buff. And on the right hand side, you can go Ashen Remains, Flashpoint, and into a Reverse Entropy in order to pick up that beautiful haste. From there on, you can customize your build a bit more with Channel Demon Fire, or invest it better into Shadowburn, or go back to some of the other upper talents to pick up a bit more AoE. But it gives you at least a couple of options of how you can customize your Warlock, and that's what I really want to come across here, is they're giving you customization, and you're still just going to invest a point into Infernal anyway. This allows you to pick up the Infernal, make him part of your build, and then make some meaningful choices further down the rows as you add talent points into the talent tree. To keep on with this, now we have a bit more of an adjustment with Ruin being the next gate talent, as well as Ritual of Ruin and Devastation if you want to pick up some of the talents down below. Over here we have things such as Soulfire into Decimation, perfectly viable. We have Improved Chaos, which can go into Chaos Incarnate. They've adjusted Chaos Incarnate as well, actually. Chaos Bolt, Rain of Fire, and Shadowburn always gain at least 70% of maximum value benefit from your Master Chaotic Energies. The Destruction Warlock Mastery is a cool one, but also kind of a annoying one depending how you look at it, because your spells will deal a guaranteed set amount of damage, plus a random amount up to the same amount additional increase. So I think your spells can deal anywhere between 14 point or almost 15%, or up to close to 30%, or somewhere between 15 and 30, somewhere in between of the two values. But this basically allows you to create a little bit more of a bottom out approach with Chaos Incarnate to increase the bottom window a little bit higher, but it does give you an opportunity to go towards from 70 to 100%, so it gives you a better window. It's still a variance, but a better window to reach some of the higher end output. As you go over here, we have Burn to Ashes, still 1 talent point, which you can, all these talents being 1 talent point, it's so nice to talent around. Down the middle we have Master Ritualist, which goes into Avatar Destruction. Orvafine is still doing some weird stuff right now on the beta, but if you do end up playing with this ability, it's a little more consistent, but it still feels like you summon a lot of them. On the right hand side, off of Ruin, we have things such as Diabolic Embers that goes into Power Overwhelming, and also Dimensional Ripper, which can be picked up from Dimensional Rift. So if you want to be able to get more charges of Dimensional Rift, you can. But now with Dimensional Rift, we have an upgrade talent called Unstoppable Rifts. This is a tier set, I believe from Season 3 of Dragonflight, where bolts from Dimensional Rift now deal 25% of the damage to nearby enemies as fire damage. This is uncapped, but it does give the ability of Dimensional Rift, the Shadow Tear, the Unstable Tear, and the Chaos Tear, which is always a guaranteed critical strike, AoE value. And you can see rifts are doing a little bit here and there. They definitely can do quite a bit in pure uncapped situations, which is kind of the bread and butter of Destruction Warlocks anyway. But I'm not quite sure if the rifts are still going to be strong on their own. I guess if we were to combine the rifts together, that was looking at like what, 15-16% of overall damage, which is somewhere in the ballpark of Immolate. But now I'm kind of waiting on the recharges for a while, and I'm not really going to be seeing them. I think Rift may end up being kind of okay if you're looking to prior mobility as a Destruction Warlock, but I think what would probably make Rift maybe a little bit better as an overall, as an ability, and that's just me personally speaking, I think the fact that Incinerate is the only way for you to be able to recharge a Rift could be adjusted in the future. Like the original tier set that played around the Rift mechanic allowed your, I believe it was Immolate, to give you a chance to give back a Rift. So every time Immolate tick down on a target, and you're probably always going to have Immolate on just about everything, there's a chance that you can refund a Rift. And I think maybe that adjustment could potentially make the Rift playstyle just a little bit better, as it's going to be a little bit more passive. Plus, if you could spread a bunch of Immolates all over the place, then that could get you a bunch of fuel for Rifts, and that could give you a bunch of AoE damage and make it a little bit better for pure mobility type of situations. I don't know, I think a small adjustment like this might actually make it just a little bit better as an overall ability. But besides that though, I'm a big fan of the destruction and readjustment that it did with the entire Summon Infernal. I think it feels really good. And the adjustment to the Doom playstyle for Demonology feels a little bit more natural, especially if you've enjoyed Demonology over this last expansion. But even if you haven't, I think you'll find this Doom playstyle just as interesting as it was back when they initially introduced that Doom brand tier set, which overall just is good. I kind of like seeing what influential tier sets end up becoming actual talents going forward. And I kind of hope that other classes, Rogue in particular, gets some kind of a treatment similar to this, because I would got a really good tier set in Dragonflight, really hoping that they maybe will pull that into the War Within as well. But Warlock overall feels good, looks good, plays really good, and I cannot wait to play them once the actual War Within expansion goes live. Hard to tell if I'm going to main a Warlock, but definitely going to be playing this one as an alt. But anyway, it doesn't really matter what I think about all these Warlock changes. I want to hear you guys' thoughts in the comments below. What are your thoughts on this update for Warlocks? Do you like this adjustment to all of the different hero specs? What are your thoughts on the ability of Doom becoming more passive for Demonology? And how are you liking that reshuffling within the talents of Destruction? Let me know all of those thoughts in the comments down below. As per usual, if you guys enjoyed this video or found it informative, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate it. And as always, in the description of every single video and live stream, we have a link to our Discord community channel. Probably the best place to reach out to me directly in case you want to let me know what you thought about this video or hang out with the rest of the community to discuss some of the upcoming changes. Join our Discord to become part of the community. But otherwise, thank you all so much for watching this video. I do hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know all of your thoughts down below. And as always, I'll see all of you guys in another video.